Hey class, we are working in week 5 and I'm going to do the factoring part 2 notes right now. So you've already finished factoring part 1, you did some practice, and today you're going to do a quizzes. So here was yesterday's notes and here's today's. Let me move my mouse all the way. I'm going to hide this. Okay, so factoring part 2. So this is just more examples, okay? So let's look and see what we need to do. So remember, we are going to make the box. Okay, so we have x squared plus 8x plus 7. So we know that the x squared goes here and the 7 goes here. So we need to find out what gets a sum of 8 and a product of 7. Okay, so let's think about products of 7. The only way to get 7 is 1 times 7, which equals 7. And what about 1 plus 7? That equals 8. So that means that those are my two numbers here, 1x and 7x. Okay, use another pen. So this is x squared, so the only way to get that is x times x. And then x times what gets 7x, and it's 7. And then 1x, the only way to get 1x is 1 times x. So, and then we have 7 times 1 gets a 7. So everything's positive because all of these are positive. So it's x plus 7 times x plus 1. Or vice versa. You can write it either way. Okay. What I want you to do is I want you to work out number 2, 3, and 4. Go ahead and write those out, work them out, and push pause. Now that you've done them, hopefully you've done 2, 3, 4, I'm going to do them and you're going to check your work. Okay, so let's make our box. Okay, so we have z squared here, we have 21 here, and then we have to find a sum of the middle term, so sum of 10, and a product of 21. Okay, so let's think about what makes 21. 1 times 21, well, if we add that, that's going to be 22, so that's not right. 3 times 7. What is 3 plus 7? That is 10. Okay, so those are our two terms, our two numbers. So we have 3z and 7z. Okay, so then we factor. So the only way to get z squared is z times z. So z times z, you get z squared. Z times what gets 3z? And it's 3. And then z times what gets 7z? 7. So then everything's positive. All of this is positive, so all of this is positive. So 7, z plus 7 and z plus 3 is our factor. Okay, hopefully you've already done 3 and 4. Let's do those together now. So this one has a negative middle term. So that's going to kind of change things up a little bit because they're not all going to be positive. So we have d squared, and we have a positive 6. So let's look and see what gets a sum of the middle term, so sum of negative 5, and a product of positive 6. So the product would be 1 times 6. If I add those together, I get 7. So that's not right. It needs to be a negative. What about negative 1 times negative 6? That gets positive 6. But what's negative 1 plus negative 6? That's now negative 7. So that's not right. What about 2 times 3? That's 6. What is 2 plus 3? 5, but we need negative 5. So let's do negative 2 times a negative 3. That gets positive 6. And then negative 2 plus negative 3 gets negative 5. So that's it. This is it. So it's a negative 2d and a negative 3d. If we add those together, that gets that negative 5d. Okay, so now the only way to get d squared is d times d. D times negative 2 gets us negative 2d. And then d times negative 3 gets negative 3d. And then negative 3 times negative 2 gets positive 6. So then our factor is d minus 3 and d minus 2. Those are our factors. That's the way to factor. Okay, next one. We need to do our box. Hopefully you've already done this. We're just checking your work now. Okay, so we know this is m squared. This is negative 7. So we are getting a sum of that negative middle term, sum of negative 6, and a product of negative 7. Well, the only way to get a product of negative 7 would be 1 times 7. But one of them has to be negative because this is a negative 7. Because if I just do 1 times 7, I get positive 7. So that's not even right. I need to make one of them negative. So negative 1 times positive 7 gets negative 7. But if I add those, negative 1 plus 7, I take the sign of the larger number and I subtract them. So that's positive 6, which that isn't right either. So then it has to be 1 times negative 7, which gets negative 7. And then 1 plus a negative 7. Keep the sign of the larger, that's a negative 6. So this is it. So it's a positive 1 and a negative 7. So positive 1m and a negative 7m. Okay, so we have m times m, take it m squared, and then m times negative 7 to get negative 7m. Then m times, let's see, 1? Yeah, 1m. So it's 1 times negative 7 is negative 7. So then my answer would be m minus 7, and then this is m plus 1 because there's no negative sign, so m plus 1. Okay? All right, I want you to go ahead and do 5, 6, and 7. Go ahead and write those down and push pause, and then push play whenever you're done. Okay, so now you should have pushed play after you've worked these out, and let's do them together. Okay, so we have x squared, and we have a negative 27. So that means we want a sum of 6 and a product of negative 27. So let's think about the factors of negative 27. So since this is negative, that means at least one of them will be, just one of them will be negative, sorry. So 1 times negative 27 gets negative 27. But if we add those together, that's a high number. That's negative 26, so that's not it. Let's see, what else is 27? 9 times 3. So let's do negative 9 times 3. That's negative 27. What is negative 9 plus 3? Take the sign of the larger and you subtract, so it's a negative 6. So that's not it, but we're on the right track. We just need to change the sign here. So it should be a positive 9 and a negative 3 gets negative 27. And 9 plus a negative 3, or 9 minus 3 is 6. So that's it. So we have 9x and negative 3x. Because if you were to add these together, 9x minus 3x is 6x. Okay, so let's factor now out of the box. So x times x. X times what gets negative 3x? It's a negative 3. And x times what gets 9x? 9. So this is x minus 3. And then this one would be positive, x plus 9. Okay, hopefully you're understanding it. Okay, let's do the next one. We have x squared plus 3x minus 40. So this is x squared, this is minus 40. Okay, so we want a sum, I'm going to change colors, a sum of 3 and a product of negative 40. So let's think about how to get a product of negative 40. We have 1 times 40. But if we add those, or negative 40, if we add those, we're going to get negative 39, so that's not going to work. 2 times 20, so 2 times a negative 20. We subtract those, that will get 18. 3 won't go in, 4 won't go in. Yeah, 4 will, sorry. 4 times a negative 10, which gets negative 40. But if we add those are 6 apart, so that's not going to work. 5 times 8. Oh, what about 5 times a negative 8? That's a negative 40. If we add those, I get a negative 3. So what if I change where the sign is? Negative 5 times an 8 gets negative 40, and negative 5 plus 8 gets a positive 3. So this is it. So it'll be a negative 5x and a positive 8x. So you're probably wondering, how do I get these numbers? I'm just thinking about products of 40, and then I add them together. So then I would make this be x, and this be a negative 5. And this is x, and this would be 8. So then we have x minus 5, and then x plus 8. 2 more problems. Okay, the next one, we have, let's see, x squared and 42. And this is a negative 13x. So we want a sum of negative 13 and a product of 42. Okay, so this is positive, right? So say 1 times 42. If I add those, I'm going to get a 43. 2 times 21. If I add those, that's going to get 23. 3, will 3 go in? 3 times 14, right? And if I add those, it's 17. 4 doesn't work, 5 doesn't work, 6 times 7. If I add these, I get 13. But I need a negative 13. So what if I do negative 6 and negative 7? Does that still get 42? Yeah, it gets positive. And then I add these together, negative 6 plus a negative 7. That gets negative 13. So this is it. So negative 6x and negative 7x. Now I factor out x and x. X times negative 7 to get negative 7x. And then x times negative 6 to get negative 6x. So that gives us x minus 7, x minus 6. Okay, last example. Let's look at this. This one looks different from the rest. And it's because they don't have it in the right order. So we got to rearrange it. So this will be t squared. And then our middle term has a variable with it to the first power. Minus 16. There we go. That looks like what we'd be doing. Okay, so let's look and make our box. So here is t squared. This is negative 16. So we want a sum of the middle term. So sum of negative 6 with a product of 16. Of negative 16. Okay, so let's think about all the factors of negative 16. So 1 times 16. But if we add those, that'll get 17. That's too high. 2 times 8. Oh, this is negative 16, so it's going to have to be like that. One of them's going to have to be negative. This is a multiply, so that's a negative. And if we add those, that gets negative 15, so that's not right. What about 2 times 8? Negative 2 times 8 is negative 16. What is negative 2 plus 8? It's positive 6, but we want a negative 6. So we know we're on the right track, but we need to change where the sign goes. So what about 2 times a negative 8? That still gets negative 16. We got 2 plus negative 8. That gets to negative 6, so that's it. So we put 2t and a negative 8t. So this is t and this is t. This is a negative 8 and this is a 2. So this is t minus 8 and t plus 2. Okay, hopefully you're getting the hang of this. Let me know if you need any help. That is it for notes today. You will move on to a quizzes to practice this. So let me know if you need any help, and I will